These are 5 things I never did to build 7, 8, and 9-figure companies. Most founders are drowning in advice. Build your personal brand, perfect your pitch deck, hire a rockstar team, post every day, network harder, rebrand, raise more money, optimize your funnel. I've been hearing versions of that for 3 decades, and most of it sounds smart right up until it burns your time, your cash, and your momentum. So after 30 years, 10 startups, 4 multi-million-dollar exits, 6 failures, which we won't talk about, here's what I learned. Growth is usually not about adding more. It's about refusing the wrong things long enough for the right things to work. The biggest breakthroughs in my companies didn't come from chasing every best practice. They came from having the discipline to ignore what looked impressive and focus on what actually moved revenue. That is what this video is about. Not the 5 things you have to do, the 5 things I never did while building and scaling brands. These are the traps that make founders feel productive while their business stays stuck. They look sophisticated, they sound strategic, and they quietly drain your edge. So if you're building a company and trying to get your traction or wondering why your growth feels harder than it should, pay attention, because the difference between a business that scales and a business that stalls is often one decision: what to stop doing. I'm going to walk you through the 5 things I refuse to waste energy on, why avoiding them mattered, and what I focused on instead. And by the end, you should have a much clearer filter on where your attention belongs, not chasing bright, shiny things. Because success is not about execution, it's about elimination. The first thing I never did was obsess over brand aesthetics before the business deserved. I see this constantly. A founder has no consistent sales, no proven offer, no real customer feedback, but they're already spent weeks debating fonts and colors and mood boards and packaging and whether the logo feels premium enough. This is upside down thinking. Early on, the market doesn't reward the polish. It rewards relevance. Customers don't buy because your shade of blue is slightly more elegant. They buy because your offer solves a painful problem. It creates certainty. It reduces friction. It makes them feel smarter for choosing you. Those are buying triggers. That's what matters first. When I started building brands, I cared a lot less about whether everything looked beautiful and a lot more about whether the economics worked. Could I acquire a customer profitably? Could I keep them? Could I create a message that made them stop and say, that's exactly what I need? If the answer was yes, the business had a pulse. If the answer was no, no designer on earth was going to save it. So a great looking brand attached to a weak offer is just expensive camouflage. Founders use aesthetics to avoid harder questions. Is the product compelling? Price right? Is the promise clear? Does the customer instantly understand the value? Those are the questions that create the traction. Now, to be clear, brand matters. It matters a lot later on. Once you've got proof, once customers are responding, once the machine starts moving, then design becomes an amplifier. It can increase trust. It can sharpen perception. It can help you charge more. But at the beginning, it should support the offer, not replace it. And if you don't believe me, go and take a look at the first Apple logo. Go and look at the second Apple logo. Look at how much money, just Google it, how much money Philip Knight paid for the first Nike logo. A client of ours, I couldn't believe this, boggled my mind. A client of ours spent $250,000 with one of the largest branding firms in New York to build their messaging and logo before the product was finished. We begged them not to do it. We found alternatives. We found alternatives that they could get done for $10,000, $15,000. We begged and begged and begged, and they did it anyway. By the time the product was launched, it was $250,000 wasted because everything changed, and we told them that was going to happen. So here's the rule. Don't build a facade before you've proved the foundation. In the early stage, the goal is not to look big. The goal is to get paid, learn fast, tighten the economics until the business earns the right to become beautiful. The second thing I never did was I never hired a savior vice president of sales before I had sold the product myself. It's one of the most dangerous fantasies in entrepreneurship. Founder struggles to excel. He gets uncomfortable hearing no, decides the answer is bring in some expensive closer with a big resume. But if you're the founder, you can't reliably explain why people buy, what objections they have, and what finally makes them say yes. And you're not hiring a solution, you're just adding a bit of confusion. In the early stage, the founder is the sales department, period. You need to hear the hesitation in the customer's voice. You need to notice when message gets attention and which one dies on contact. You need to understand the why behind the buy so deeply that your pitch stops sounding like marketing and starts sounding like the truth. I never wanted somebody else discovering the core psychology of my market while I sat in the background pretending to be the visionary. The founder has to be in the trenches first. That's where the real language comes from. That's where your strongest marketing angles come from. And that is where you earn the right to systematize sales later. Once I had traction, once the process was clear, once the objections and the close were predictable, then you can bring in a sales leadership. Then it makes sense, but not before. So if you're still early, stop searching for a hero. Become the person who understands the customer the best. That skill pays off long after the first sales are made. The third thing I never did was to follow the standard marketing playbook. Just because everybody else was doing it doesn't mean it was right. Average businesses copy average tactics, and then they wonder why nobody notices them. They run the same safe ads, use the same tired claims, package themselves in the same polished language as every competitor in the category. So the result is predictable invisibility. In a crowded market, attention is the entry ticket. If people don't stop, you don't exist. That's why I've always believed in doing things that cut through the clutter. Sometimes that meant a bold angle, sometimes it meant a stunt. Sometimes it meant messaging that made people laugh, argue, look twice, not for the sake of being ridiculous, but for the sake of being remembered. For the sake of being remembered. A lot of founders say they want growth, but what they really want is approval. They want marketing that feels tasteful, safe, universally liked. That instinct will kill you. The market is noisy. Safe is usually read as forgettable, and forgettable doesn't convert. So the goal is not random outrageousness. The goal is strategic distinctiveness. You need something that earns attention and then converts that attention into trust. That means your hook has to be sharp, your promise has to be clear, your delivery has to feel different from generic corporate wallpaper people ignore all day long. My competitors often leaned on feature benefit advertising that sounded clean and respectable. Great. Respectable is rarely what gets shared. Respectable is rarely what gets talked about. If you want breakout growth, you need a message architecture that creates curiosity, a point of view that has teeth, and campaigns that people can actually remember after they scroll away. Let me give you an example, and you can Google this one. When we launched an online shaving business, we needed to break through the clutter. Tons of competitors, there are big companies out there, so I offered Brian Wilson, who was a great pitcher at the time, $1 million to shave with our razor. The reason we chose him was that he had this tremendous beard, and MLB hated it. They wanted him to shave it. He knew, or we knew, it would get attention, and it did. People from around the world were sending us images, many not safe for work, body parts with a price tag to shave. We were on every sports news show, TMZ, Radar Online, newspapers all around the world. People were outraged that we would offer someone $1 million just to shave. A week later, he turned down the offer on a new program, I think it was TMZ, and people were outraged again. But we got our point across and we became known as a brand within a week. So ask yourself, are you building marketing to avoid criticism, or are you building marketing to win attention? Because those are usually two different strategies. And in the early stages, especially playing it safe is often the riskiest move you can make. The fourth thing I never did was ignore the KPI ladder and hope growth would somehow show up. Too many founders manage by emotion. They feel busy, they feel optimistic, they feel like momentum is building, and then they check the bank account at the end of the month and get punched in the face. That's not a strategy. That's autopsy, Mark. You're examining the body after the damage is done. I wanted to know what was happening before the outcome showed up in the financials. That means tracking the leading indicators that actually drive the business. Traffic quality, conversion rate, average order value, repeat purchase behavior, contribution margin, sales cycle velocity, refunds, churn. Whatever matters in your model, you need a ladder of metrics that tells you where the growth engine is strong and where it's breaking. This is what data-driven scaling really means. Not drowning in dashboards, not worshiping spreadsheets. It means identifying the few numbers that predict whether the business is getting healthier or weaker and using them to make decisions fast. If something wasn't working, I didn't need a motivational speech. I needed the truth. Where's the leak? Is it the offer? Is it the traffic? Is it the close? Is it the retention, the marketing? What is it? Once you know that, the next move becomes obvious. Without that clarity, founders pivot emotionally and they spend irrationally and the mistake activity for progress. Metrics are not there to make you feel smart. They're there to keep you honest. Honesty is expensive if you delay it. So no, I never guessed. I measured, I interpreted, I adjusted, because profitable scale is not built on hope, it's built on signals. The fifth thing I never did, I never wasted time on fake guru networking. There's a whole economy built around looking success, masterminds full of people flexing revenue numbers nobody verifies, events where the best networker in the room is often the worst operator, circles where status matters more than substance, and everyone's performing. Entrepreneurs entrepreneurship instead of actually doing it. I avoided that world as much as possible. Why? Because proximity to noise can feel like progress when it's actually dilution. You leave those rooms pumped up, full of buzzwords, screenshots, yeah, let's go. But none of it necessarily helps you understand your customer better. They don't help you understand your product or improve your offer or tighten your execution. It's entertainment disguised as strategy. I left one group. I couldn't believe it. This is what motivated me to leave. The founder says, oh, we just got a new member in the group. He's had 50 exits. And I went, 50 exits? Are you out of your mind? If the guy is 50 years old and he started when he was 20, that means he's having more than one exit a year. It's impossible. It's impossible. I don't know on what planet 50 exits is even possible. Elon Musk doesn't have 50 exits. Anybody who's ever built a business, scaled it, and exited would be able to sniff out that that's BS to begin with. 50 exits. And that told me this group was full of crap, letting anybody in, and I'm not going to get anything out of it. And I resigned from the group. The relationships that mattered in my career were never about clout. They were about candor. People who would tell me the truth. People who cared about traction, who cared about margins, who cared about customer behavior, positioning, performance. People who were actually building, testing, learning in real world. That kind of circle sharpens you. The fake one, that just sedates you. A founder's time is too valuable to spend collecting business card dopamine. I'd rather have one brutally honest conversation with a real operator than 10 dinners with people selling an image. So be careful who gets access to your attention. Some rooms make you feel bigger while your company gets weaker. Others force you to confront reality and build something stronger. So choose the second kind, because exits don't come from being seen in the right places. They come from solving the right problems with the right people at the right level of truth. So if you look across everything I just shared, there's a pattern. I didn't win by adding complexity. I won by removing distraction. I didn't waste early energy by cosmetic branding. I did not hire sales leadership before I understood the customer myself. I didn't copy safe marketing that disappears on contact. I didn't run the company by gut feel when the numbers could tell the truth faster. And I didn't spend my best hours in rooms full of performance and posturing. That doesn't mean the things I avoided are always useless. It means timing matters, sequence matters. Founders get into trouble when they do advanced looking things before they have a business that deserves them. Polished identity before product market fit. A big hire before message clarity. More networking before more traction. More tactics before better economics. So here's the challenge. Pick one thing you're doing right now that feels productive, but is not directly tied to revenue, not tied to customer insight, not tied to operational truth. Just one thing. Cut it. Reclaim that time and put it to work with something that actually compounds. Better offers, better messaging, better sales conversions, better metrics, better decisions. That's where the real growth starts. And if you want to build a company that has a real shot at scale, you need a filter, not just for opportunities, but for distractions, because every bad yes steals energy from a better no. If this kind of thinking resonates with you, go deeper into the frameworks. I put a lot of these lessons into my books, into my resources linked below, and if you want to be around founders who care more about traction and truth than hype and theater, check out the No BS Collect. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. What's the one thing you're going to stop doing this week? Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you on the next one.